Welcome everyone to sportsbookreview.com. I'm Flash and today it's all about finding the early value in the NFC before the draft. The draft comes up in 2 to 3 weeks time, but we're going to try and find you the value where the prices will no longer be available and they certainly won't be bigger come, draft time and get ready for the regular season. I've got esteemed, I've got experienced, and I've got respected. We're going to start off in the NFC East. And obviously that means the Eagles, and that means Donnie, you take it away.
Yeah, topsiders, you like to say there, Flash, the Philadelphia Eagles sitting about plus 120, plus 130 to win the NFC East, and I do agree with that. Two-team race, so I think we can all agree the Dallas Cowboys coming in at about plus 130 in that range. So fairly even prognostication between those two, but if we're leading up to the draft here, Flash, I think you're more likely to see the Philadelphia Eagles after the draft dip down to 115 to 110 range as opposed to go to plus 150 or plus 160. I think if you like the Eagles now, once they ramp up, figuring they're going to draft a wide receiver in the draft, those odds will improve. So I think you should be able to take those Philadelphia Eagles now and be happy with it because you're more likely to see those odds dip as opposed to increase after the draft.
Yeah, I don't see them getting any bigger than 125 plus 130. Also, the 9.5 wins, I think they hit double digits. But Drew, I'll come to you. I see 25 to 1 plus 2,500 for the Super Bowl. And that is a massive standout with BetOnline.
Wow. That is a very, very favorable price. I'm high on the Eagles heading into this season. I'm high on them to win the NFC East. I think, there's questions and there's murkiness across some of the other conferences, but across some of the other divisions. But the NFC East, to me, looks like the Eagles to lose. I like them at plus 130 if you can find that to win the East. And that 25 to 1 is pretty wild because I think they have a very realistic shot at getting one of the top couple seeds. Obviously, this year with the 7 playoff teams, you only get a bye if you get the number 1 seed. But they're a talented enough team if they can address some of the key outstanding holes in the wide receiver and the defensive backfield with the draft this year. I have a ton of respect for Howie Roseman as a GM. He's done a really nice job of accumulating talent on this team top to bottom. And obviously, I think a lot of Doug Peterson as a coach and the coaching staff in general on this Eagles squad. So I think they got a very realistic shot to make this happen. And 25 to 1 seems extremely favorable. That's a number that kind of mid-season you're going to look up, and that's going to be in the 8 to 1, 10 to 1 range, in my opinion.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Teddy, look, I've got Eagles and Cowboys. It's a coin flip with the prices, but I don't see it being a coin flip with the rosters.
No, I'm with you 100% on that, Flash. When we look at Dallas, Dallas is a very top-heavy roster. They've put a ton of salary cap money into their stars. They had to. Everyone had to get paid this year, and they paid the guys that needed to get paid, which means that when the injuries happen, inevitably, Dallas isn't going to have money to get guys. So when we say, and organization-wise, which organization do we trust going into the draft, Cowboys or Eagles? It's not even close. Drew talked about GM Howie Roseman, who's made one good move after the next for years for Philadelphia. I don't think you can make that same statement about the Dallas Cowboys front office and management staff. You can maybe make the case one bad move after the next for Dallas. So I do like Philly, but in a division where the Redskins and the Giants are not likely to be contenders, and I've got all kinds of questions about Dallas, why not look at the Cowboys under 9.5 wins? That's one that makes a ton of sense to me. I like the Eagles at the plus price to win the division, but I also think that Dallas is a vulnerable favorite and a vulnerable or co-favorite and a team not likely to win 10 games this year.
Yeah, 9.5 seems a bit top-heavy to me, Donnie, because I think last year they scraped. I think they went like 500, 8-8, and now they seem to be a little bit weaker for me. But if we just leave the Eagles, who we're getting to get double ticks, we're going to go negative on the Cowboys. But what about the Redskins? Will they get 6 wins? Because I'm happy to fade them at under 5.5.
Yeah, it depends on both those teams, the lower bottom brackets we're talking about, because in the NFC East, let's also not forget the Philadelphia Eagles, the only team that's going to have their head coaching staff and front office in place, as opposed to looking at Dallas and also with the New York Giants and Redskins, a lot of turmoil going through and a lot of young quarterbacks, especially at the bottom of the division. Is Daniel Jones the choice for the New York Giants? Is Dwayne Haskins going to be the choice for the Washington Redskins? They could go in some crazy formats because, again, let's not forget, talking about leading up to the draft, both of those teams, the Giants and the Redskins, have top 5 picks here, number 2 and and number 4 overall, which they could make some big waves in improving their football team. But if we're talking about younger quarterbacks, Flash, I'm not really in the game of saying I want to go over the total with Dwayne Haskins at this point because he hasn't shown me all that much. Now, if it was one of those things where they made a move, got a veteran quarterback to come in, I might change my tune a little bit. But if we're going to go with younger quarterbacks, I usually tend to go under the total, and especially younger quarterbacks with new regimes here.
Okay, Drew, I'm going to come to you now. We're going to have a little look at the NFC South. I was so hot on the Saints with the Bucks, the Falcons, the Panthers. I'm getting a good price on the Saints because everyone's going delirious about Tom Brady going down there. I've made my feelings very clear on that. How do you think the Saints stack up this year?
I agree with you. I think they're the right call in this division for sure. Obviously, I would have liked a better price than you can currently find out there now. I think best I'm seeing is a little bit over evens, which is that's fair. But I would think that New Orleans should be priced with about 60-65% win probability in the South because they clearly have the most talented team top to bottom. They have an established and experienced coaching staff that has really made the most of this roster. And, the one weakness on the team really that would prevent me from getting involved at all in them as far as winning the NFC or winning the Super Bowl is I just don't have confidence that Drew Brees' arm is going to be able to carry them through 19 games. It's there at some point during the season. He's going to have to throw them into a contest. And we saw against the Rams 2 years ago. We saw against the Vikings last year. In the playoffs, when push comes to shove and he's up against a tough defense, he doesn't have the tools to be more than one-dimensional in terms of just the short passing attack. And, they've done a nice job of putting more talent around him. Bringing in Emmanuel Sanders was a really nice move. They have a young core of guys that they hit, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, they absolutely hit it out of the park in the draft. They brought in so much good talent. And a lot of these guys are now maturing on team-friendly contracts, and they're playing some absolutely fantastic football. So presuming that Drew Brees' arm doesn't fall off literally during the course of the season, then I think the Saints win the NFC South and set themselves up for a little bit of a playoff run. But I don't have confidence in getting involved at the current prices in NFC or the Super Bowl with the Saints.
Yeah, the big one for me is obviously maybe 30-40% of the snaps and maybe go to Tatum Hill. So they're going to preserve him and make sure that he's there at postseason. Teddy, this is a division of the quarterbacks. We've obviously got Drew Brees, we've got Tom Brady, we've got Jameis Winston that may well play his part if Tom doesn't get off to a flyer. Matt Ryan and Teddy Bridgewater. Where's the value for you in the NFC South?
Well, I mean, it's a no-brainer for me. Who's the best quarterback in the division in 2020? It's not ancient Tom Brady, who, say what you want about the Patriots last year. The reason that New England didn't go to the Super Bowl is their passing game didn't work. Okay, their defense was dynamite. Their running game was there. Tom Brady held the Patriots back last year. Drew Brees got to miss, 7 weeks in the middle of the season and still had no arm strength at the end. All right, 2 quarterbacks on the wrong side of 40. I have no interest in any chalk with either of those guys. And we say Atlanta, it's the same crew coming back again. They didn't fire Dan Quinn again. The Falcons have been a team that very hot in the markets last year. Everyone's, Atlanta's going to be great. And then they shit the bed and nobody wanted and now everyone's looking, the Falcons are way down. The roster's there. They have the best quarterback in the division. You can argue they have the best playmakers at receiver in the division. The defense is loaded. I think there's hope for Atlanta. I really do. And at the prices we're seeing, they're lined at 7.5 wins. They're lined in the 6 to 7 to 1 to win the division range. That's where the value lies for me in the NFC South. I'm not bullish on the Saints, and I'm not bullish on the Bucks. And Carolina clearly rebuilding. Last point. I don't want to overstate here, but the teams with the organizations in place have such a huge edge this year over the teams that don't. A new coaching staff that doesn't get to put in their playbook in the spring. Those aren't teams I'm going to be looking to be betting over their win totals in the fall. And that includes, obviously, Carolina and a lot of the NFC East that we talked about earlier.
No, you make a great point, and I think that those that have got continuity, they can go in there and they'll already know everything about the playbook, they'll know everything about each other, and they can just hit the ground running. You make a good point also about the Falcons. Just being over 500 is a winner. So over 7.5 wins, I think you can go with that. I still think the Saints, worst case scenario, go 11-5, Donnie. There's a few bets to be had there, but the Saints at plus 500 to win the NFC doesn't really tickle me.
No, I actually don't mind it, though. I'm looking right now at 5 dimes offshore at plus 550. I think that's a fair number. And also keep in mind the new playoff format here. And there's a huge home field advantage if you get that #1 seed in the overall bye, which if you're the New Orleans Saints, you want to stay home in the Dome as opposed to playing in Philadelphia or Chicago or playing outdoors, which is going to limit some things that you like to do, specifically, as the panel has talked about here with Drew Brees and his arm strength. But the one thing I do like, if you're going to go out and lay a number, let's just say minus 130 on the New Orleans Saints to win the division, it's always nice to have a backup plan because you look at the Carolina Panthers, Atlanta Falcons, and Buccaneers. Once you get down past their start, it's kind of iffy. Last year, you saw the New Orleans Saints use the same type of blueprint with Teddy Bridgewater coming in and winning football games when Drew Brees went down. Now you still have Taysom Hill on that roster who's capable of running an NFL offense and has a lot of game day experience doing that. So if you do lose your quarterback, you don't want to feel like you're out of the fight, which 95% of the league will do. You feel like you still have a chance to cash your bet, even if Drew Brees goes down for the season or even an extended period of time with Taysom Hill behind him. I think the Saints are the most talented team in the division overall. Teddy does just bring up some good points there. When you're looking for overall value, you get a healthy Calvin Ridley, get a healthy Julio Jones in a dome with Matt Ryan. Yes, they can do some damage. And if you get an injury key or two, hey, Michael Thomas goes down in New Orleans, that entire offense might go in the flux. We see how good he is and how a potent offensive threat he is with New Orleans. You take him away, we'll see what else they can do. So a lot of things can go in. I still look for the Saints to win the division because, again, I like to lean on a good backup plan here in Philadelphia. We won a Super Bowl with a good backup plan in Nick Foles on that season. Outside of it, I don't know if I want Carolina Panthers. A little bit too new for me in that division, trying to get the new coach and staff, Teddy Bridgewater taking over a new system to run. Atlanta Falcons, they burned me in the past, so it's hard for me to go back. But I certainly don't want anything to do with the Buccaneers. And the fun part about that is I didn't agree with them getting Tom Brady. And the Buccaneers is an overall organization. They come out in the past recent days saying, hey, we get a new uniform here. Watch this. We're going to have a press release. Looks like the same damn uniforms to me. I can't trust the Bucs.
No, I don't. If you're happy with the NFC champions being the New Orleans Saints at plus 500, then why would you not also go to BetOnline and have a look at the Saints at plus 1,500 for the Super Bowl? That makes them just as much sense because if they go into the NFC Championship game, then they are going to be around maybe 3-1 plus 300 for the Super Bowl. So for me, I'm thinking that you go with the Saints at plus 1,500, you put that, you tuck it away, and there is your value pre-draft. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Drew. Thank you, Teddy. That is the value on the NFC prior to the draft. We'll see you all again soon.